Hello, I'm Lorenzo Marchessi of the Geek Authority, and I wanted to quickly thank you for watching the show you're about to see. I also want to make sure that you know it's very important to me that you subscribe to this channel, as well as click on that little bell that sends notices when new shows are dropped. If you would like to help support the Geek Authority, you can go to patreon.com, where you can help keep new shows coming by donating whatever you can. Thank you again so much for subscribing and supporting the Geek Authority. Now, enjoy the show. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Geek Authority Show. I'm your host, Lorenzo Marchessi, and this is the show where I get to talk to all kinds of different people from different walks of the entertainment world, or private businesses, or fans of the sci-fi fantasy universe, or anything. Musicians, magicians I've talked to, authors I've talked to, cosplayers I've talked to. So today I've got an extra special guest. This is somebody who's actually on the East Coast. I myself have been in West Coast, California. You are in?
Right now I'm in Oxford, PA.
Oxford, PA. This is Chris Mich, I believe.
Yes.
Correctly. And Chris Mich is a big fan of, he's in a comic book store for one, so obviously you got to love him. He's a big fan of Star Wars and basically movies of all kinds, of all genres. He's done movie blogs. He's got papers he's written. He's working on his doctorate. It's kind of amazing how diverse this gentleman is. And welcome. Thank you so much for doing the show.
I am so excited, and I am so pleased that you asked me to be on the show. I think it's fantastic. So I'm geeked up and ready to go.
Absolutely. This is where all the geeks go, by the way. For everybody watching now. Okay, before we geek out, let's do a little story. We talked a little bit before we started recording. How did we meet? Let's do that first.
Yeah, that's a good place to start. So, as you mentioned, I'm going after my doctorate right now in communication at Regent University. And in my last class, which was a theory class, and theory classes are not necessarily my forte. They can be quite brutal, but at any rate, I was learning a lot of fascinating things, and I learned about different group theories. And I started a paper called hashtag movie theater during the pandemic. And basically, I was applying theory and did some field work on Instagram. By field work, I mean going on Instagram, doing some research, and I did 2 snippets of how people use the hashtag movie theater on certain dates a month apart, and applied different theories and categorized them and tracked them as far as how movie lovers were struggling with the fact we couldn't go to movie theaters. And one of your posts on Instagram was one of the ones that caught my eye, because not only did you use the hashtag, but you were commenting on Godzilla versus Kong, and that you mentioned you were a little bit nervous going in the theater, as many moviegoers were. And that was a part of my study. And so I reached out to you to say, hey, I'm interested in your post. Do you mind if I include it in my paper? You were very gracious and you said I could. And then we just started exchanging messages. And that is the wonderful thing about the internet, is that when you make that connection and you start talking, and then you're like, oh, this is someone like me. This is someone I can get to know, and we can share information. It was very cool.
Yeah, and the one of the nicest things about what has happened during this pandemic time is a lot of people have connected. Zoom just blew out the window for a lot of people. Yeah. People are doing watch parties, watching movies, TV shows. They're sharing a lot of their likes and dislikes and commonalities. And I think that's what's exciting about when you contacted me. First I was shocked because and then I was surprised. You want to use my quotes in your paper. I thought, wow, that's an honor. And I'm like, absolutely. So I think what I think the people don't realize is there's a lot of downsides to social media and so on and so forth. be they cancel culture or hater, what they call haters. But as long as you find something, a niche or something that you can share with people, and it's always fun to share when people agree with you. But I don't know about you, but don't you find it interesting when you disagree with somebody as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. As a Star Wars fan on social media, it's a tricky space, right? Because like you want to make connections with other fans, and as you said, there's just some people that like to stir up the pot and stir up hate. One of my
They're called clickbait.
Yes, yes, and one of my favorite analogies that's been used, especially on Twitter, is like when they talk about Star Wars fans on Twitter, they just show a dumpster on fire, because it can get really nasty. So it's tough when someone throws out there like, "Who's your favorite character in sequels?"
Right.
And then you have fans of the sequels saying, Baba Frick or Ray, and then you have other fans who are just want to tear down and destroy the sequels, and they get a little nasty, and it's unfortunate. It really is, but you kind of you got to roll the dice whenever you put a post on anything. As far as like, do I want to get involved in this conversation, or I'm going to let this one pass? At least that's my philosophy.
I'm,
But I
I'm
found
curious. I'm curious. Are
Mhm.
you a fan of Star Trek at all, or just Star Wars?
I am, but quite honestly, like I can't. My fandom can't. My wife's more of a fan than I am,
Okay.
and that was kind of funny because like we were like of the generation of like, oh, you're a Trek fan, I'm a Star Wars fan, and we had that little kind of fun animosity that once existed between the franchises, which I feel like all has but melted away. But which is a good thing. But I am a Star Trek fan.
Okay. The reason I ask is we talk about the dumpster fires and things like that.
Mhm.
I've got some doing this. I have a background in film and TV production, and I've got some friends that work in different various places. And I posted, or I posted something that in the Star Trek universe that was actually true, because I know people working on the project and or in the production offices, and boy, did I got my butt shootout because everyone's like, no, no. And I'm like, okay, I learned my lesson there, because certain things, whether they're true or not, people just hate. They
Yeah.
don't want to know the reality. So, that aside, we're going to have two conversations, the pluses and minuses of Trek versus Star Wars, and we're also going to talk about
Oh
Star
boy.
Wars universe. But
Okay.
we'll save that for later.
Okay, great.
Let's go back to you. So,
Okay.
where were you born and raised, first of all?
Oh, I was born in Trenton, New Jersey, but I was raised in Lower Bucks County. The biggest claim to fame that you could get is that M. Night Shyamalan shot Signs in my hometown.
Okay.
So
Probably the only, well, I did enjoy a little bit if you saw my review of Old, but
I have
probably the,
not. Yeah. I
probably the best film of his that I've seen. So,
Wow, that's quite a review.
yeah, I'm not a big fan of his because his other
Okay.
stuff was a little too weird for me.
Yeah.
But check out the review; it's on Instagram and all that. But
Cool.
the other thing is, you said when you said right now you're not in your hometown, correct?
Correct.
this
Correct.
this wonderful store, which we'll give mention to a little later,
Yes.
shop for comics, and I found out action figures and stuff. So
Oh yeah, lots of goodies here.
I'm
Yeah.
excited. So you know, if you've watched any of my shows, I have a few buddies of my own. So anyway, speaking of which, look at this guy. This is Herbie over here, and
I know. I love it. It's awesome.
okay. So did you grow up in the like I grew up with a lot of reruns. So I caught like Star Trek and reruns. And of
Mhm.
course, when, the big screen and it hit the big screen, Star Wars was like, I was out getting my stick in the backyard, lightsabering trees right after it. So did you grow up with this?
Yes, I mean the funny thing was like when Star Wars the first Star Wars film, A New Hope, was at its peak, I wasn't I think I was just too young at the time and I wasn't really into it. And a lot of friends that got to know me in high school and college are shocked by that because they think you must have been a lifelong fan. The film that really made it for me was Return of the Jedi. And it's not so much that I was trying not to like Star Wars. I just kind of like I don't know, I just kind of pushed it aside for, between Star Wars and Empire. And then I was in fifth grade and it was opening day for Return of the Jedi. And this is, trust me, I understand the irony of the statement I'm about to say. All the cool kids in fifth grade asked me if I wanted to go to the movies to see the new Star Wars movie. And I thought, like, well, this is interesting. Like,
Which was
the only,
Jedi, right?
yeah, this is Return of the Jedi. So this is 1983, May 25th, 1983. And I was like, Okay, sure. And I mean, I played street hockey with these kids and whatever, but like they definitely were like their tight clique, and the fact that they included me was interesting because I was just I was just a nerd. And I went to the movies with them, and we bonded. But what really hit me was how awesome this movie was, and of course, I'd seen snippets of Star Wars and even fewer snippets of Empire at this point in my life. And as a fifth grader, just being hit with all of Jedi just bowled me over. And then what really cinched it was the famous shot in the second Death Star battle where you see the Falcon and you just see it flying, and there's just TIE interceptors and everything flying everywhere, and there's like 200 spaceships on the screen. And I sat up there and was like, "This is what I want to do." Like this is incredible. I'm totally buying everything that's happening right now. And to have that realization and to hit me was just great. And I started taking art classes, and I got interested in film history. I read as much as I could, and then life just kind of took on its own course after that.
Were your parents supportive of this?
Yeah. What's interesting is my dad didn't go to college, and he basically he worked in the post office for 20 years, and then he was more or less a janitor at a power station for 20 years. But he really encouraged the arts with the kids, and he didn't push us into college. But once we kind of found what we wanted, he really highly encouraged it, as did my mom. And they uh, once they found out I was interested in film, I started getting the download of stuff that I think my dad was just kind of storing up. Like, hey, listen to these records. And I'm listening to records, not realizing they're Henry Mancini soundtracks. I'm just like, oh, I like this Mancini guy, their soundtrack. Oh my goodness, this is cool. I got to go see these movies. Like, and it kind of fed in that. We had a lot of trips. Atlantic City used to have I forget what casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey used to have something called the Epic Buffet, and it had a lot of movie props from Ben Hur and Cleopatra and all these things, and seeing those. And I remember standing by the case with one of the original Maltese Falcon props in the glass case with my mom, and I'm wearing a baseball shirt with like the Emperor on it from Return of the Jedi, and like the whole thing just kind of made sense to me. It's like there's so much history here, and there's like visual storytelling is just so amazing. I got to be part of this somehow.
Wow, kind of similar. My dad introduced me to a lot of the old classic movies, mainly the war genre.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as music goes, for me, I heard we were watching Patton with George C. Scott,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an incredible film. I never
Mm-hmm.
saw, it was on the small screen. I didn't see it on the big screen, but it was like, back. You remember Betamax? Anyway,
Yeah.
uh, anyway, we were watching that, and I remember listening to the score, and I'm thinking, this is pretty cool. And the composer got an Oscar for it. And then flash forward, I don't know, 4 or 5 years later, I'm in the movie theater watching Logan's Run, and I'm
Mm.
thinking, wow, what a score! And it's the same guy. My guy is Jerry Goldsmith.
Okay.
Um, I grew up with him, and my favorite thing, and I know yours is Henry Mancini,
Yes.
um, which I really do. You remember he did a? Oh God, I'm dating myself. Do you remember the disco version of Charlie's Angels he did?
Yes, of course. That's a great album cover.
It was a big. I mean, I loved it. I mean, yes, I
Yeah.
liked disco when it came out, but for those kids who are watching who don't know what disco is, look it up. Okay, so
Yeah, he also did a really interesting cover of the Star Wars main theme for Reader's Digest. Reader's Digest put out albums, and he did Star Wars. And I won't go into a complete history lesson on Henry Mancini, but like when I found it out, like I was so happy because Mancini was a mentor to John Williams. John Williams played piano on Peter Gunn, and the fact that they had that connection, and of course, Mancini made it popular for a film composer to put out albums and Americans having it on their record player. Like before
well, he was
Mancini, it was just, it
he
was an art, but it wasn't like a pop culture.
right, and I
You know,
believe Henry Mancini worked with a lot of pop artists of the time,
he did.
Burt
He did.
Bacharach and
Mhm.
Dionne Warwick and a whole bunch of
Yeah.
classic
Yeah.
vocalists. I guess
And
they
then when you
call
get yes, and then so flash forward to Star Wars, and people are buying a classical movie score in droves in the 70s. Williams, like, I mean, obviously he did great work before that, and he continued to do even more amazing
it.
work.
TV too.
But TV too, yeah, it's just
And just
interesting
for
their
those
partnership.
who don't know, probably Henry Mancini, he's done hundreds of scores and won hundreds of awards, but he's probably most noted for the Pink Panther theme. I would say, if you had to pin Mr.
Yeah,
Mancini.
his big, I think they call like the top three or the top four is Peter Gunn. uh, Moon River from Breakfast at Tiffany's, Pink Panther, and I'm
Baby
trying.
Elephant Walk.
Yeah, that might be in there too. I mean, he's done
I've
so
never heard
much.
anybody when they say Henry Mancini say Peter Gunn, although I know he did it. But it's usually the fun ones that are.
Well,
Hit here.
today we're recording this on Blake Edwards' birthday, and Blake Edwards, the film director, he had a great relationship with Mancini, where they worked 30 years together on 35 films. But it all started when they worked on the TV show Peter Gunn,
Right.
and that
And for
particular
those who don't
song.
know, Blake Edwards is the guy who directed films like Ten and Pink Panther. And
Mhm.
is he still married to Miss Dame Judy Andrews?
I
Or
Yeah, that I don't know. Unfortunately,
okay,
I
well,
you'd have to IMDb that.
he
Yeah,
was married to Julie Andrews,
yes,
and
and they
SOB.
work together.
It
Hmm.
was him that talked. Anyway, we're
Yeah,
going into different careers here. Okay,
that's a whole
so
different rabbit hole. Yeah.
so you parents were encouraging, went to school, and all this other stuff. So, at what point did you start? I believe you were making your own films, making your own projects.
Yes, I went to for my undergrad. I went to University of the Arts in Philadelphia for film, and I made some films there, obviously as a student. And then after graduation, I kind of did the freelance thing, and it was more. I was working at a TV station, but I was doing more work in theater actually than in film. And then through all that, I wound up working for QVC, the home shopping channel. And once I kind of got a steady job and was trying to get everything on track, I once I started
And
working
and
there, I got
for QVC, were you making videos? Is that what you were doing?
when I started in. It's funny because like in I've been with QVC for over 26 years. And the first 10 years, I held 13 different positions because it was such a dynamic environment. So I came in as a scenic technician, which is a fancy way of saying move that couch. Would just move the couch off the set and I'd put the set up and whatever. But that job led to production assistant and writing jobs and then editing jobs and it just kind of snowballed from there. But while I was there, I was making films on my own outside, and they got into some festivals and got some notice. And then a company did a really cool thing for a short amount of time where they had. It was inspired, I think, by the 48-hour film festivals that were popular at the time, and you could pitch a film to executives there, and if the panel approved, they'd give you a modest budget and a weekend to do it.
Yeah.
And so I did one film, and it was a little short comedy thing, and it went and it got in the festivals, and did well, it did okay. Got on a couple local chat like public PBS channels and whatnot. And then
This is
when I
all on the
told the
East Coast, right?
mm-hmm,
All on the East
mm-hmm,
Coast.
yeah, on the East Coast. And then when I told, I bumped into one executive in the cafeteria one day, and I just said, "Hey, just so you know, my film did pretty good out in San Francisco. I flew out there, and they liked it in the festival, and um, I just want to let you know, thank you again for the opportunity." It's like, "Do you want to do another one?" Yeah, approved. So I went and I was doing, in addition to doing short narrative films, I was doing some avant-garde shorts. And I'd done one avant-garde short called MFL with a very good friend of mine, who's a composer I work with a lot, Paul Ohlers, Dr. Paul Ohlers. And that first film really changed, kind of put me on the film map as far, like not in a big way, but like suddenly it got noticed. It was
For those who don't know, avant-garde. Let's explain that. I have
okay.
my
So
definition.
Okay. So avant-garde is outside the mainstream of like pop culture movies, mainstream narrative movies. They're art films. They might be based on a concept or exploring a special technique in filmmaking.
Or visual,
Um,
just visual.
yes, just visual. So
Some people, and this is not a denigration, but some people call them bizarre, or
yeah,
you know,
they're
you've got
yeah,
to have a taste for them to enjoy them.
totally.
Yeah.
So
So
I was doing some narrative stuff and I was doing some avant-garde stuff. My narrative stuff was getting mild success. Let's just put it that way. It got in a few festivals. Like I said, it got on a few local channels. My friend Paul says, "Hey, I have this score. It's short. Do you want to make a film?" And I heard it, and it reminded me a lot of Philip Glass and Godfrey Reggio's work with the Kotze trilogies. So I went and did a modest short Kotze type film, and did this thing, and this film just blew up for us. It got screened in Berlin, was performed at the Disney Music Hall out in LA, performed various, like, it just exploded. And so at any rate, Paul said, I would like to do another film with you when an opportunity presents itself. So to get back to my cafeteria story, when this executive says, go make another one, I had money and time to make another art film with my buddy Paul. So I made this film called Character. And likewise, it went through and it gotten some festivals, and it was just fun to make that. And then possibly we're going to do a trilogy, right? These things come in trilogies.
Are these
And that
movies on your YouTube channel? Are they available to watch?
so I'm getting, well, not all of them. Some of them, they're
Okay.
pretty dated. We're talking like decades ago, and but the third installment is on YouTube, and that's a film called Made to Suffer. And so same composer and same obsession with the first film's more about time, playing with time. The second film is about how letters become objects to art, how they are objects and meanings in and of themselves. And
Letters
then
as in alphabet or letters as
as in the alphabet,
okay.
yes. And then Made to Suffer was about mainly about binary code. But when I was talking to Paul about it, I was like, I want to make this a Star Wars fan film. To which he was like, are you crazy? Because we're talking about binary code and it's an avant-garde film. And I said, no, I don't see it. I'm looking at the fan films and they're very cool. The ones that are being submitted to this annual festival that Lucasfilm was running, but I don't see anything like this. And Lucas made films like this when he was in college. And he actually made a film called Herbie, which is using the music of Herbie Hancock and shooting a Volkswagen Bug at night. He made tons of films of various numbers, and of course THX 1138 is narrative, but has an avant-garde feel, right? It has an experimental film feel, and
You
so I
sure?
made.
You sure it wasn't Cell Block 1138?
Yeah,
That's a Star Wars reference.
that's
Okay.
a good one. That's a good one. So anyway, I made this little film, and it was 47 seconds long, and I sent it in, and the festival loved it, and I was a finalist. So
47 seconds?
47 seconds. So it's not much of your life to watch it. It became a
Wow.
finalist, which meant George Lucas screened it, which was awesome. And that was like, to me, it was like, okay, this is good. Like I've seen it. I've seen everything that he's done and watched multiple times. He's at least seen one of my films once, and it only took him less than a minute. Um, but it was at San Diego Comic-Con, the festival then. It was 2004. Flew out there, and it was just an amazing experience because San
Nice.
Diego Comic-Con's incredible to begin with. But when you get there, they were showing our film over the marquee of their shop. Like they had plasma screens and I was like saying to the executive there, Lucasfilm executive, this is awesome. This is great. Look at this. My film is showing at the Lucasfilm booth. He's like, Chief said, you haven't been on the other side of the flat, have you? I said, no. It's like, go walk through that door. And I walked through that door, and on the other side of that door was a full-size X-Wing, people cosplaying in X-Wing outfits, smoke machines going, and a full-size movie screen suspended above the X-Wing showing our films in their entirety.
Wow.
And that was like, oh my goodness, this is it. Like this is it like
You,
pinched me
you don't have a
because like,
video of that, do you?
no, of
Oh,
course not.
oh.
Yeah, no, it's just like, I mean, that was 2004, and it was just a great experience. It was, and it
Yeah, I
just came
used to go to Comic Con every year until the pandemic, since
right.
1990. But when's the last time you've been to Comic Con?
That well, I mean, I'm East
2004.
Coast. So, yeah, it's been 2004. So I'm in the San Diego Comic Con since then.
Have you been to the Star Wars celebrations?
I have not. I have not
I've
been
been to
there.
two of those. I'm assuming you didn't go into any Star Treks
Only
or
if
Doctor
they're
Who. Are you into
yeah.
Doctor Who?
I'll be honest with you. I've been to a Star Trek convention in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania. So
You have
it
here.
was yeah.
Well, cool. So you've had the convention experience then.
Totally. Yes.
Okay. Okay. On that note, a nice little segue. I want to share something here. Let's go real quick. Is this a thinking director?
This is actually just from a trip I took down to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and I
Graffiti.
don't know. I love graffiti. I've messed with it in some of my video work and film work, and I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do with it yet. But I saw this wall, and I asked my wife, "Like, take a picture of me by this wall. I just think it's cool." So
Does it say on there? See my agent? No, no. Okay. All right. What do we got here?
this is I'm on set. This is something I did for QVC. It was yeah, it was a spot for a KitchenAid, and it was really cool because we got to do a retro story. So we, at the beginning of the spot had a 50s look, and then it transitioned into modern day.
Wow. Do you like when things and projects do that, the kind of retrospective vision? Like, for example, are you watching, have you seen WandaVision?
I've not yet got to WandaVision. I just finished. I'm going out of order. I just finished Loki.
Okay.
So I'm a father of six, and I work full time, and I'm getting a
Wow.
doctorate. So like, it's so funny because when I talk to various people, like, "What do you watch?" and I mention like, "Oh, I watched this classic movie, or I watched this." They're like, you're not watching WandaVision, you're not watching Soldier. I'm like, you understand? Like, I get this much time in my week,
No,
and
I get it. I get it. But
yeah,
the only reason I say that is because it's kind of a, I think when projects like WandaVision, I don't know if you know, but the every episode takes a decade of the sitcom. I don't know how to say it. Like there's a Dick Van Dyke episode, there's a Brady
right.
Bunch episode, there's a, you know, what's the one with the kids? Fred Savage, help me.
Oh,
Wonder Years,
thank you.
kind of thing.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I think when they shoot in those styles, it's just visually just so much more interesting, as opposed to your typical kitchen or bedroom or whatever.
Sure.
Anyway, hello. Boyhood home of Henry Mancini. So where is this?
This is in West Aliquippa, PA. So this was taken a few years ago. My son was going on the summer college tour, and he was visiting Pittsburgh and St. Vincent College out west, and these other out western PA. And at one point, we were staying relatively close to Henry Mancini's hometown, so where they have a bridge named after him. And I said, we got to go. And
Right.
my
How do you
son's
say
no
that?
West
Ele-
Aliquippa.
Aliquippa. Okay.
Yes. So so we went out there, and I've read Henry Mancini's autobiography and another book on his work and life story by John Capp. And he grew up in the mining area of Pennsylvania, and a very industrial area. And so it was interesting going there now, having read his experience growing up in that town. And it's this quaint little town. And so I walked the bridge, I took pictures. I just it was pretty cool.
Wow. Dun 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 dun. Dun.
Yeah, you like that? So that's an official Indiana Jones hat from, I think it might have been a Crystal Skull promotion. I'm not quite sure. And a classic Star Wars Cantina shirt. I'm climbing up a mountainside here in Italy. This is on location. We were shooting for QVC, and it was
QVC sent you to Italy?
so QVC sent me to Italy 3 times to shoot. We do a lot. We used to do a live broadcast from there in relation to the Gold Fair that they run, and this was a side of a castle that was 1,000 years old, and the remains of it. And we did a color story about the area, and this is me climbing up. And what was really cool about that was when we went there, the crew was given an extra day, because just a terrific schedule. You're doing 20-hour days because you're shooting during the day, you're editing at night, then you got to like broadcast at crazy hours to make the US airtime. So they would give you an extra day to kind of like cool off in Venice before you got on a plane and head home. Well, one year, I went to the director of the remote productions department. I said, do I have to stay in Venice? Or if I can stay under budget with the travel arrangements, could I go to someplace else? He's like, what do you want, Chris? And I said, well, I want to go to Lake Como because they shot around Lake Como. They shot some of the Star Wars Attack of the Clones. And he said, do it. So I had a day. I hired a woman who worked for the film office in Lake Como, and she took me to Villa Balbinello, where they shot the wedding scene with Anakin and Padme, and there's the meditation scene with Anakin when he realizes he needs to go back to Tatooine to save his mom. So we
Wow.
went there. We went to Tremezzo, where there's the picnic scene with the shacks, and then he's talking about how like someone wise should lead the whole Republic.
The shacks
Um,
are those creatures he rolls over. So
the big tick-looking things, yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Not
and
everyone is as well versed in Star Wars as we are. Okay.
well, yeah,
Uh,
but yeah,
okay.
it was cool. It was a really cool trip. So this is an older picture of my son Peter and myself. Peter and I are both volunteers at the Museum of Science Fiction in Washington D.C. It's a virtual museum now. They have conventions in order to raise funds to get a building and get set up. And the conventions are super duper cool because what happens is you have cool things like this with a replica of the Millennium Falcon and the cockpits on the other side of that door. They have a floor, and one floor might be a comic book store. I'm sorry, when you're walking through the floor, one booth might be a comic book store, another booth might be some kind of cosplay thing, and then the next booth is actual NASA scientists, and they'll give you virtual headsets and they say, where do you want to go in the galaxy? And then you tap the headset, you travel there virtually, and they're a real person standing right next to you, like, okay, if you look to your right, you'll see this star and this constellation. Then
Wow.
you go to the next booth, and it might be a heart surgeon, and he's willing to explain what he does every day of his life. And it's a STEAM event where they're bringing in inner city kids and they're exposing them to science and the arts and how they can work together. And I absolutely love it. And one of the things about the museum is my friend Paul, who composed a lot of my films, he got involved first. He said, hey, they're doing a film festival and they need help. Would you be a judge? I said, I would love to. So I went there. And the first year I went, pretty much within 2 days, I went from just a judge to, hey, you're the head judge. And then a few hours later, how would you like to MC the award ceremony? And I said, okay, great.
Wow.
And I did that for 3 years. They took a break right before the pandemic. So hopefully once things settle, we'll get back to that. Yeah, this shot of me on Turner Classic Movies. I'm really proud of this moment. I was in their fan club. That's why it says backlot member. And you had to submit films to talk about, and you had to do a little write up. And if you sent it in and they liked it, they sent back, and you became a guest programmer. And I was on the air and interviewed by Ben Mankiewicz. So Thanksgiving weekend 2017, I got to introduce Test Pilot from 1938.
Wow.
And so that was a lot of fun.
Okay.
This is me chilling out in the West Coast. At least that's as close as I'll get to looking cool.
And the
Um,
guy next to you, is that Harrison Ford? No, just
Yeah, it should be because that's the Blade Runner house. That's the Ennis Brown house out there in California. I did a Blade Runner tour, and it's not really a walking tour. It was more like a driving tour. But
right.
I went to the train
These
station.
are locations that the movie Blade Runner was shot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. I went to the tunnel they shot, and there. This is a shot again from the Escape Velocity convention that the Museum of Science Fiction runs. That's the first film festival award. That's when they like, hey, how would you like to MC? And you can't really tell by this blurry picture, but I'm wearing Star Wars Vans on that get up. So like I had
Star Wars
this type
what?
of this Vans type of sneaker,
Oh,
slip on
oh,
sneaker, and it had a kind of print like this. It had the blueprints of the ships all over it. So
wow.
my second to last year, I think, with the Escape Velocity convention that the museum runs, they asked me to be on a panel deconstructing A New Hope, which if one of the reasons we're talking here is because of my blog, which basically looks at a Star Wars movie and then connects it to a classic film.
Right.
So my role on this panel was we would watch a couple of scenes, we would pause the movie, and then we would talk to the group watching, saying, hey, these are the films that are referenced.
Right.
There's a film called Dam Busters that's very similar to this trench run, or this is kind of an element that Lucas might have borrowed from The Wizard of Oz. So it was a lot of fun
Well,
doing that.
he himself he even talked about the dogfights from the old movies like Wings and things like that. So
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So just another shot of the panel. I love the fact that I got my eyes closed. Like this couldn't be like a more imperfect picture of me.
your eyes are
But
closed. Oh, I guess they
yeah,
are.
yeah, it's just like how typical. But with the gentleman that's frame right of me in the Star Wars hat is Charles Hildebrandt, and his dad did the original Star Wars poster where Leia has her one leg out, and Luke's got his
Right.
chest all up, and he's holding his lightsaber up, and he's very involved in the museum. And he said to me right before this picture was taken, he's like, I hate pictures that are always perfect in pose, so I'm going to move my hand and try to make it blur. And of course, I started laughing, and then they took this picture. So like that's
Perfect timing.
wow, yeah.
Uh-oh,
Uh,
someone got
yeah,
an award.
Yeah, some of my work in QVC, a lot of the producers at QVC do amazing work, and I'm no longer a producer, but at this time I was, and that's a Telly Award.
And tell everyone what a Telly Award is.
So
Right.
Telly
Check it out.
Awards,
Look at that.
yeah, they honor productions on all platforms, not just TV. and like so social media, any place you can watch a video, and they honor them for different categories specifically, sort of like the Oscars, but for advertising and video on
Right.
various platforms. And this particular award that I'm holding was for a commercial I did for QVC.
Very cool. Yay, Herbie.
Uh, I can't tell you, this is a lifelong dream that you're seeing right there. So I've often heard that some of the original Volkswagen Bugs that were used in the original Love Bug movie, you could visit and see in certain museums. And
And you look so unhappy, let me tell
I
you.
know, look at that, right? Um, Love Bug was the first movie I remember seeing, and I saw it in the drive-in in our hometown growing up. And
Drive-in. Uh-oh.
yeah, I know, sat on the roof in my pajamas watching the Love Bug. Like that was fantastic. At any rate, we found that this is the Star Cars Museum in Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and they have a ton of cool vehicles from various films there.
Right.
And as we were walking around, I probably shot 20 minutes of footage of this car just by itself. And then I went downstairs and I said, "Hey, I heard you can get pictures with the cars." And they have a staff member who takes pictures. And they go, "Yeah, you can get in it." And I'm like, "What? Wait, what?" And of course, my 18-year-old
Which
and 20-year-old son were like, "Oh, here we
you don't,
go."
which they don't do really. I mean, it's like the first time I saw, I don't know if you ever seen the George Barris Batmobile from the TV
Yes.
show.
Well, that's what that most of the cars in this museum are George Barris. So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was stunning. And the kit car, I've sat in the
yeah,
kit car, I've sat in the Munster Mobile. Um,
that's awesome.
we're geeking out here. So okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now this is an intense shot from the movie. No, just kidding.
I threw when you asked for pictures, I thought it was kind of funny as I was going through some old stuff. And this is we were on a location shoot for work for QVC, and some product about putting groceries in a bag that kept it cold or whatever. And so we had to reserve this spot for the picture car to pull into. So I'm out there standing, saving this spot, and I gave my phone to the stylist on the production. Said, "Get a picture of me," because this pretty much sums up the glorious life of a producer. Like you're standing in the rain waiting for the picture car to return.
Okie dokie. All right, we want to give a quick shout out in the store that you're in right now. I believe the owner's name is Randy. So,
Mhm.
tell us a little bit about this real quick.
This is again, this is where I'm sitting right now, the Maroon Hornet. This is my happy place. I love this comic book store, and Randy and Lori who run it are fantastic people, and
Why
my kids
Maroon
love it.
Hornet? Is that
It the
is he a fan
the
of the Green Hornet and the color maroon, or what?
Well, I think it's a play on that, but the local high school team, I believe, are the Maroon Hornets, the football team. Is
Oh,
that correct, Randy? Yes. So the Oxford High's team is they're the Hornets, the Maroon Hornets. So
very cool.
taking it, yeah, making the Maroon Hornets kind of cool, right? It's a local thing, but it's got a comic book feel, and it's a great store. And
Ooh, I see action figures and comic books, and
yeah,
are those pops and
yep, lots of
Funko?
yep, lots of Funko Pops, lots of stuff like that. Yeah, and I'm sure other comic book aficionados will appreciate this. That I remember walking into this store after visiting a couple times with whichever kids were with me at the time, and Randy and Lori were setting up bins, and they were putting numbers in the bins, and they said, "Do you see this number 27? That's you." And when I got a bin in the store, it was like getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. It was like, I've made it. I've got my own bin.
What do you mean a bin? Like
So like
your
they
name
have
on
they
it?
yeah, well no, everyone gets a number, right? So I got number 27, but like that when my issues come in, they just file them right there so that when I walk in, I can go right to them, pull my comics out, and boom, there you go.
Oh, so like he knows exactly what comics you want.
Yep. And I'll message him like, can you get this? Can you get that? I just, so right now I'm reading War of the Bounty Hunters, which if you have not started reading that, you have to start reading that series because it is amazing.
Okay. All right, that's a good little segue there. Let's talk a little
Okay.
bit about Star Wars.
Okay.
Okay. One of my big pet peeves, and it's just my own personal whatever. Um, when Star Wars was released in 1977, it was called by the Library of Congress Star Wars. So I took me a long time to get used to this episode 4, A New Hope, episode 5, episode 6. To me, they were always what they were, which was Star Wars, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, and Star Wars: Return of the Jedi.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, they did the prequels, and I guess they had to put a number on everything. because that's where that all came from.
Hmm.
Um, are you? I got to ask this: are you a fan of the prequels?
I am a fan of the prequels.
Can I ask you why?
So I will say this.
Do you have a Jar Jar plush at home?
I maybe I do. Well, I'll say my 8-year-old has it now, but yeah, I did buy it, before he was born. Um, so I like the prequels, and right now they're not getting the hate the sequels are. It seems like after the original trilogy,
We're not there
whatever.
yet. Let's talk about the
Yeah,
prequels.
I know. Well, I will say this. Um, I loved episode 1 because it was different. It was courageous to make a movie like that and to market it like that. He took a chance, and it's also the last time Lucas directed a film shot on film. And I think that's
I thought the first three were all HD.
no, Phantom Menace was shot on film. He didn't go digital video fully until Attack of the Clones, and Attack of the Clones was the first feature to be projected digitally. So and now every movie's projected digitally.
Right.
So when people start throwing on the hate on the prequels, once again,
Well,
Lucas reinvented the industry in that course.
and okay, we got to talk about this because I can appreciate the industry. I can appreciate the art and the technology and all that stuff that goes into it. I'm a reviewer. I've been reviewing for many, many decades. And I always go for two reasons. I want to be involved with the characters, even if they don't speak or say anything. And I want to have a story that doesn't take me out of the film or project or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as I'm concerned, the Immaculate Conception, the a couple of the other story points just didn't make sense to me. It wasn't the characters I wasn't involved with, and the only interesting characters that I was involved with didn't have a lot of screen time for the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my thing is story and characters,
Mm-hmm.
which I think. Let me back up a little here. My favorite of the original classics is Empire Strikes Back.
Mm-hmm.
It had everything a story needs. It had everything characters need. It had a beginning, middle, and end. Could have been its own film, and you didn't need the others. Jedi was my least, only
Mm-hmm.
because I think he was going for the cutesy and the whole bit with the Ewoks
Mm-hmm.
and whatnot. Star Wars is great. The original film,
Mm-hmm.
1977. It's an action film. It's an adventure film. It does what it does, and it's nothing. Not too deep. But the prequels for me just didn't work. What worked was Yoda. Um, I love seeing Yoda fight because I didn't know how he did it, being 2 feet tall,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how he was going to do that as a Jedi. So with that, with my little debate there, how do you feel about the stories and characters?
Um, did you see them with young, like children, or did you just go in yourself with fans your age?
No,
Or did you see it
I
by?
went excited to see a new movie, Star
Sure.
Wars movie.
And you have every right to go in there and seeing that. I had 2 young sons that couldn't get over how cool Darth Maul was, and came home and started grabbing the tubes that paper towels are wrapped in and got magic markers and started coloring them, and then played lightsabers in their backyard. And what Star Wars dad wouldn't want that? Like,
Okay.
seriously, like when you come home from the movie and your kid starts coloring a lightsaber,
Yeah, but
you know,
and I get that. I totally get that. But you're a film,
oh,
you
I
appreciate film.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I mean, and I know the technology you had already mentioned, but did you really feel the Immaculate Conception was a good
I
story point?
I thought that was incredibly interesting and bold. I thought that when I saw the trailer in front of the Water Boy, or because the original episode 1 trailer run in front of Micho Black or the Water Boy, choose your poison, and when I saw that original trailer and I saw the Kurosawa elements coming through again, I was like, I'm in. I'm in.
Okay.
So when I saw the film opening night, which I understand probably 98% of that theater woke up the next day with a hangover thinking, what did I do? Why am I in on this movie? I was like, this is incredible. It was Times Square New Year's Eve when you went and saw that movie. Like, people in costume. There was, in our theater, there's 4 guys that had like, were not wearing shirts, and they did like the one letter on their chest spelling Yoda. Like, it was just insane. It was the last time I slept out for tickets for anything,
Okay.
and connect it with fans. and was interviewed by the local radio, like, why are you sleeping outside? And, it's like, because we want to get tickets for the first screening for episode 1. And it's not that it was all this hype and I had to justify it. I just liked it. I liked what he did. I am a huge Buster Keaton fan. And the fact that he watched tons of Buster Keaton to try to figure out Jar Jar, the physical comedy, and the mishaps of the final battle in episode 1 is amazing. And by the way, the final battle in episode 1, that's pretty much the Avengers. Like, when you see the first Avengers movie and they're in New York and they're fighting, I'm like, this is interesting. They just have to knock out the mothership to kill all the robots that are on the planet. Where did I see
Well, I
this?
mean, you're
Um,
nitpicking story points now, but what I'm saying is the intrigue of the film. When you sit down in a film, you don't want to be taken out of it for any reason. And like Jedi, when the Ewoks got kind of too much, and the whole Jar Jar thing was just weird.
mhm.
Um, it just took me out of the movie, and I'm talking about story and character wise. So where Star Wars and Empire and Jedi didn't like.
Well, I mean, like every Star Wars film is flawed. You started by saying this conversation like Empire's the best and it could be a movie by itself. It also has a really weird scene between Luke and Leia that is uncomfortable and awkward and always part of that movie. And the fact that they turn out to be brother and sister in Jedi. Um, and so when you look at the films and like, oh, this film's perfect, there's nothing wrong with it. No, there's
But
something wrong
I
with
didn't
that.
say perfect. I didn't say perfect, but
Yeah.
again, if my elements that I need in a movie are story and character,
Hmm.
characters
I
I believe, and then story that makes sense.
I think it was a great setup. I think it established seeing young Obi-Wan and seeing like
Or
what
Ewan
him
McGregor was
losing.
amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah, and seeing him lose his mentor in that movie, spoiler alert. But like see like I mean, you had Liam Neeson playing a Jedi. Like, come on. I was all in. And I think the finale of episode 1 is awesome. And I think the lightsaber battle in episode 1 is the best lightsaber battle ever, and they will never get close to it.
Which one was that? The Darth Maul?
Hmm. Darth
Oh,
Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan.
wow. Okay. Um, let's
And
jump
that's what's
to
great about Star Wars is that people can have different opinions
let's
and
jump
they
to
can.
the
Mm,
sequels. Nine,
okay,
8. What is it? 7, 8, 9.
7, 8, 9.
What did you think?
They're
Uh,
definitely no, no. Well, look, there's enough people out there hating them. They don't need another person hating them. I will
but
say
be
this.
honest. Tell me. I mean,
Well,
honestly.
I'm trying to be. Seven had a lot of the magic of opening night of 1. I actually saw it with college buddies. They flew out from LA to see it with me in PA, and we kind of gathered people that haven't seen each other, hung out with each other for a long time, and we decided to see it together, and that was magical, and then we went to a diner afterwards and argued the heck out of it because half of us love us and half of us didn't, and but like, isn't that what you want from a movie when you watch it with friends? You want to be able to talk about it, and
Absolutely, absolutely.
so
But from a film person again, from a film
yeah,
standpoint, I felt Force Awakens was kind of trying to be the first Star Wars.
yeah, it was.
I mean,
I mean, it
the
just.
Han Solo reveal was kind of a disappointment to me. Um, and then let's jump to Rise of Skywalker, and I'm like, what the heck were they thinking on this one? So as
Yeah.
far as the sequels go, I think Last Jedi had more story and character for me. It's the
Well,
one I
last
enjoyed the
yeah,
most. But
Last Jedi, they took chances. Like Force Awakens, I felt was a care, and I do credit this to J.J. Abrams. It was a carefully calculated, merchandised Star Wars film, right? And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean it was like, okay, there's a formula, let's follow it, and here we go. I mean, like, keep in mind that was a stone's throw from the Star Trek reboot. And when you watch the Star Trek reboot, it's like, oh, this is kind of like A New Hope. Like, he's got an issue with his dad, and then this mentor comes in at a bar, and then he goes off on this adventure, and it's like, okay, so I like Force
you do know
Awakens.
Star Trek was first, right?
I do.
Okay. So I mean, I'm
As
going to
Lucas
point.
once
I'm going to.
said, Star Wars stands on the shoulders of Star Trek, and I totally get that.
Okay. I'm
I
just
like
saying. I
last,
mean,
yeah,
J.J. Abrams is a pretty good director as far as a lot of the stuff that he's done. And I was really scared going into the Star Trek 2009 because I'm like, oh God, what are they going to do? But I was, it didn't bother me. I wasn't taken, what's the word? I wasn't turned off by it. I mean, the
Mhm.
sequels after that, but I did like the 2009 Star Trek. I
I did too.
wasn't, I wasn't impressed with Force Awakens. Last Jedi, which I think is the most hated of the Star Wars fans for some reason, is probably
I think Rise of Skywalker has a run for the money on that title, as
really.
far
I
as being.
think I think
Oh
they're
yeah,
I think my feedback has been that Last Jedi is the worst thing ever made in the universe, um, and I agree with. I think Rise of Skywalker is the worst, and then second worst would be
yeah. I mean,
Force
look,
Awakens.
you know, just belonging to different film groups, both online and in person, and just people I've worked with throughout the years. Like the kind of running joke is like, if it's the weakest film in the batch, Chris is going to like it. And sometimes it's that way with music. A good friend of mine's a
The
Springsteen
underdog.
fan. Yeah, and he's just like, "What's your favorite Springsteen album?" Like Lucky Town. It's like, oh, like like hey, you're an REM fan. What's your favorite REM album? Out of Time. Oh, Chris, you're killing me. Like it might just be my bad taste, but I know
Yeah.
what I like.
Right.
And I like talking about it.
Okay. So tell me you have not seen The Mandalorian.
No, what do you mean? Of course I've seen The Mandalorian.
Okay. And what do you think? Uh oh. Maybe before I assume.
No, I love it. You kidding me? I love The Mandalorian. I think
Okay.
it's great. I think, and if you haven't seen the behind the scenes of The Mandalorian, I forget what Disney Plus is calling that series.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's not
I'm
a,
I'm I'm
yeah.
all in on The Mandalorian. I'm not of
Well,
all,
then you, then
of
if
all
you
the new
watch,
stuff. Of all the
yeah.
new stuff, my least favorite is the Winter Soldier Falcon and the whatever the hell that's called. And then, well, no, actually, no. I think Loki is probably for me. I didn't
Oh,
work.
I read your review of Loki.
Yeah, I did not
You
work
did not
for
gain
me.
fans in my house based on that review, but that's
Yeah, I
okay
just it
because
was
it's a free country and you're entitled to your opinion.
exactly. It's like I don't know. I mean, every time I watch an episode, I'm like, what the hell just happened? Really?
Yeah.
I
I like films like, Alphaville, Godard's Alphaville and Chris Marker's Lachette. And I felt like Loki was tapping into a lot of that. And it's not perfect, but it was a fun ride.
of the three of
I
the
was with Loki to the last two episodes. And then the
uh,
last two episodes were like, ugh,
yeah,
I
and
don't
of
know.
the three of the new ones, I think Wanda had the best. It intrigued me the most.
Mhm.
Although I was still asking by the last episode, what the heck happened? But
Right.
the Mandalorian, I think, is picture perfect, script perfect, and cinematic perfect, writing, cinematography, performances. It says very little. There's not a lot of dialogue in every episode,
Mhm.
but it has a lot of impact. I think.
Well, if you like The Mandalorian, you should visit my blog, diggingstarwars.blogspot.com, because right now this year, what we're doing is we're going episode by episode of The Mandalorian and pointing it to a film, a classic film, or a previously made film that is referenced in each episode. We did it for season one of Mandalorian. We're currently in season two. We have a guest writer. He's a
Really?
brilliant guest writer.
So now,
Uh,
are these associations that you are observing?
so when we started the blog, I did a ton of research on films that Lucas would reference in interviews back when we were doing the other films. So episodes 1 through 6, and then as the sequels came on, we added those on too. But I did a lot of research on films that either Lucas himself pointed to, that other film critics pointed out, things that I saw, conversations I had with fans, et cetera, et cetera. I had a notebook, and I made a list of, and just for episodes 1 through 6, I think I had like 160 films off the cuff. Like these are films that I know based on these conversations, research, and just what I'm seeing. So with Mandalorian, it was interesting because Favreau and Filoni, I'm sorry, the creators,
Oh yeah.
they aren't shy about saying, "Hey, see what we did there? Hey, see what we did there? Hey, this movie over here. This is this type of movie's version, and the TV version of this type of movie." And so it's a mix. It's a mix of what we heard them say, and then like I said, we have a guest writer right now on the blog writing, and he's doing a great job. And it's funny, he texted me one time. I think we're up to episode 3. He says, "What do you think?" I'm not quite sure. And then I rewatched the episode because it's been a while, and I sent him a list of 7 films, and then he came out of left field and said, "I think it's Waterworld." I was like, "Okay." And he went, "Really?" I was like, "Just do it." I said, "Just write it," because um uh that's one thing I want to kind of to get to talking with you is like, I think it's important, just keep writing, to just keep writing about what you love, because when you keep writing, it forces you to research, it forces you to talk, it forces you to look, and it sparks other people, and that's a rewarding thing about writing.
Okay. So the answer to my question is you're kind of putting yours and this other writer, your own kind of interpretations of the shots.
We're picking mainly one film, and then he basically does a recap of the episodes, kind of puts some insights and what he loves. Um, he's the guest writer for this particular season. I've had other writers come in and write as well. We don't really have like a staff. I don't want to make it sound like it like I got a writer's room and they're waiting for me to walk in with smoking a cigar. All right, guys, this is what we're gonna do today. No, I mean, I did it for the long haul. I had, we used to do audio versions, and we have a ton of those on YouTube that you can listen to, where I have a guest on with me, and it's kind of like a faux podcast. And we go back and forth on films. And then I just started doing, I did the writing blog thing because I wanted to switch it up. And when you do a blog for 10 years, you want to switch things up. And that's what I did. So I started writing. And last year we celebrated our 10th anniversary, and we had a bunch of people. I gave some of our guests that have been throughout the years free reign, like 10 films. I don't care what they're about. Go. And we had different previous guests do like either their top 10 or top 10 films that Digging Star Wars covered or what have you.
Right.
So there's a lot of interesting material on there.
Which now, thank you very much, is a nice segue to this.
Oh, there it is. That's my blog.
So this is the site that you were just talking about where you can hear this. Okay. What do we got here?
So I did this. I'm getting an echo there.
So this, I'm seeing Waterworld here. These are podcasts on the film?
No, so if you click on Waterworld, it's a text entry about the film and how it ties to this particular episode of The Mandalorian.
Okay. Okay. So, and this is season 2, right? I'm just let's browse. Aliens, Jaws. So okay, so you're associating 10th anniversary. You're associating. I'm just trying to understand. So you and your writers are picking a film that represents an episode of Mandalorian.
Currently, this current season, this is what we're writing for Digging Star Wars this season.
Okay. The reason I wanted to clarify that is because I how do I say this? Waterworld is considered one of the worst movies ever made. So, and The Mandalorian is one of the best television series I've ever seen of its kind.
Well, I will say this.
So I can't, my brain can't wrap that around. Moving forward, let's go to, ta-da!
Thank you so much.
Is your paper, I believe.
So this is not the one that references you, just to be clear. This is a paper I wrote several years ago, and it was published in the Journal of Science Fiction, which is an academic journal that the Museum of Science Fiction publishes out. Now, I had submitted this prior to climbing the ranks of, in the film festival, but I am a huge Robotech fan, and for those listening and don't know what Robotech is, of course you can Google it. But in short, it was a 1980s anime series that Carl Macek, he basically took 3 different anime series and wrote them into one big giant science fiction epic show. It came after Star Blazers, for those people that remember Star Blazers. While I was pursuing my master's, I got to write a paper on a cultural study of Robotech, specifically with how certain characters are treated. Because the interesting thing about Robotech is that they encouraged a lot of mixed relationships, whether it be racial or even species. But the interesting thing about it is while they had characters like that, the offspring of those relationships were problematic in the storyline and shunned and mistreated. And I found that to be very interesting. Again, this is 1985.
So are you talking about the psychology of what went into the writing of that? Is that what it's
about? And what was represented in that show, like a cultural study of that show. And what's really interesting is that, like Robotech is made up of 3 television series that were made and produced in Japan. And then the visuals were taken, and an American story was written, and voiceovers were re-recorded, and it was piecemealed together to make one big story.
Right. So when you say rewritten, the actual story points were changed, or they just
Yes. Well,
translate?
they were slightly tweaked, but like, they were, again, these 3 separate shows had nothing to do with each other in Japan. But Carl Masick, as got the rights to them and then wrote them together. So there was a storyline that went through 3 generations
Is the
of
series
humanity.
available on DVD, Blu-ray, or
It
anything?
is. It's available. If you go to robotech.com, it's available on various streaming platforms, and it's available on DVD. And I think they're remastering it for the umpteenth time. Much like Star Wars fans were like, oh, I guess we're going to buy the films again. I guess we're going to buy the series again. Um,
That's
but
just marketing, though. They do
yeah,
that to
yeah.
get that bucks. Uh,
Um,
and here's your other favorite love.
ah, So yes, I'm a member of Letterboxd, which is a really cool social media site for film lovers, and you can keep track of what you watched, and you can also create lists. So I have 2 lists when it comes to Mancini. One is films I need to see of his, and films I haven't seen, and he's scored over 133 films. And this past summer, I just got over the halfway mark of I've seen more than half the films he scored. So it's my mission to try to see everything that he scored. So this is not a complete list. This is only what I've seen up to date, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah. What was his last film he scored?
I believe it is Tom and Jerry the movie. He passed away in '94, and Tom and Jerry came out in '92 or '93.
And his first score, was that it? City Beneath the Sea?
So he used to work at Universal, and he was part of the composers there, and he reported up to I can't, of course, I'm blanking on the gentleman's name, but who ran the music department. And so a lot of these films you see in his first layer, like the Abbott and Costellos, he's uncredited because he was just part of the staff that wrote the music. And one of the cool things about Mancini was this: back then, you had a film, Universal had a library of sheet music, and the music team were told, okay, here's the deal. You have a romance scene, you have a chase scene, you have a drama scene, you have this. Go pull the sheet music for this, go to your orchestra. And then the musicians that were on staff wrote cues that segued those scenes together. Right. So their job, the only original music that these writers were doing, Henry Mancini being one of them at the time, a young Henry Mancini, was to just write a bridge. All right. Just write something that will get us 10 seconds from this song to this song. Well, what Mancini did very early on was he started expanding what he wrote into the established sheet music of these various themes and cues that Universal had and these other studios had. And his manager hated it and called him on the carpet in front of the executives and said, like, Mancini's doing this. He's writing more than he should. He shouldn't do this. Um, reprimand him. And the executives were like, no, we're going to make him a composer. And that's how he got his break.
So
Because
meaning he would get screen credit for what he did.
yeah,
Okay.
and he would get to write more,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I love that. I love the fact that, like, he did more, and someone was trying to get him in trouble for it, and it wound up benefiting him, because he loves music.
Okay. Now we're off to YouTube, and this is basically what the is a commentary, right?
Yeah, so I presented my Robotech paper that we just discussed at a symposium in Harrisburg, PA, back in 2012. So this is I did a recording while I was there, and this is just my presentation of the paper. So if you don't feel like reading, you can listen to this. If you're a Robotech fan, you can listen to this presentation.
Wow. Okay. And
This is Made to Suffer. This is the Star Wars fan film I talked about.
all right. I can run a little bit. No audio. Sorry, folks. Um, yeah, it looks like action figures.
Mm-hmm. So I really liked in the prequels the fact that you saw Anakin becoming the more machine than man that we hear in the original trilogy, and I thought it was interesting that he was becoming a machine, and he built 3PO, and of course 3PO is a machine, And 3PO has the line in the first Star Wars movie about how he used to program, used to binary load lifters. And I just kind of fell into this rabbit hole of like how there's a nice symmetry and poetry to that he created Anakin. I mean, he created 3PO. And then when the hand-drawn series, The Clone Wars, came out before the Lucasfilm version, the version that's now going into Clone Wars and Bad Batch, they had an action figure of Anakin that had an orange metal hand, yellow orange metal hand, and it's in this video. And I was like, oh, that makes him even more like 3PO. So I had a crew shoot these figures, and I gave them some direction. And then I was obsessed with binary at the time. So I went on a collection of collecting all the ones and zeros I could find in the real world, magazines, signs, whatever. And then I handed them over to someone who was getting into some graphic animation. I said, I want them animated like this. I want them animated as if they're on like the big wheel on what's the name of that game show where they spin the wheel and they're all the numbers.
Price is Right.
Price is Right. Thank you. I want it like that, but I want to be able to speed control it and motion control it. So he built this virtual Price is Right wheel that we could animate and edit and spin. And it just turned out. I really like how it turned out. And I went and submitted this film, and I was lucky enough to be a finalist.
Wow. Very cool. And this is Digging Star Wars Season 1.
So we did 3 seasons where we recorded, they're basically faux podcasts, like I said, just audio tracks of us talking about different movies. And in the beginning, in Season 1, the first couple episodes are just me. And as you can see, I'm hitting some of the heavy hitters here with Metropolis and Enter the Dragon and Gone with the Wind. And then we started to branch out and do other things that were influential or had some kind of cross tie. And there's actually 3 seasons of this on YouTube where you can hear me and different guests talking about these films that inspired.
I'll put the links in the video when it drops so people can go right to them.
Thank you. Yeah.
There's another. This is Close Encounters.
This is one episode I actually recorded with a good friend of mine, Scott Presswood, out in LA. And what's great about this episode is when I have guests come on, they have some connection to the film, whether they love or hate it, the history. And when we sat down to record this in LA, he said, well, I never saw the movie. And I went, wait, what? I was out there, and like I said, I was visiting him, and we're all set up in his studio in LA. And he's like, yeah, I figured we'd watch it and then record it. So we actually, in this episode, start talking about it and then stop. And then we watch the movie and then come back. And it was very interesting to get a fresh perspective from someone in today's day and age seeing Close Encounters for the first time.
Which version did he see? There's 3 versions.
I know. So this is, I want to say it was the director's cut.
Okay.
That's a good question.
The super extended one they put on TV is not necessarily, it kind of drags a lot. I do like Steven's cut. So,
yeah.
Okay. And this is Lawrence of Arabia. Ooh.
Yeah. I love Lawrence of Arabia. And every time I think I'm over this movie, I see it again. And I'm like, how can anyone be over this movie?
And talk about the score. Oh my God.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's fantastic. And so this episode, my good friend Peter Fay and I are talking about Lawrence of Arabia, and Peter is he's a funny guy, he's a brilliant guy, and I just love this episode. It's one of my favorite. I don't re-listen to every single episode I've recorded, but this is one I do go back to.
Now again, let me understand. So you are comparing Lawrence of Arabia to a Star Wars.
Yes. So there is a solid straight line connection between Lawrence of Arabia and Star Wars Attack of the Clones.
Okay. Just so people know.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like, because I've never heard of a blog or thing like that where people are just talking about films, just sitting one film and everybody. That would be a good thing. If you ever do a blog like that, let me know. I want to do that. And I got a couple film selections. This is kind of cool.
Yeah. So another film friend of mine, Phil Congleton, he's done a couple of different series on YouTube just talking about movies. And as we were approaching the year 2016, I said, you know what? 2016 is a leap year. Let's do a joint project together. So let's put our individual projects on hold and let's go out and film each other, or or film ourselves, whatever. So we did a project called film366.com, and it's another blog, and we did videos reviewing films, and the goal was to pick a film for every day of that leap year that tied to it. So if it was National Take a Hike Day, we might do one of the Lord of the Rings because there's so much walking in those movies, or if it was, the day that radio was invented, you might see Radioland Murders. Like, so we did all these reviews, these video reviews of movies, and it was a lot of fun. Of course, we went out thinking we're going to shoot 366 of these, and then we got to about 50 and realized this is impossible, And one person said, like,
A
if
lot
you
of
think
time.
about it, it's a lot of time. Like, like 50 films, 3 minutes each. Like, think if you try to do a feature film. Like, I'm bad at math, but like, it's a lot of content we created. But that being said, we always posted something on the blog. If we didn't have a video, we would put up a written review, or the trailer from YouTube or something. Like, we made sure that we hit it every single day.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to do that with a buddy. It was a lot of fun to promote it. And I'm never going to do it again. It was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun.
Too much work. Okay, another shout out to Randy, I believe, and the Maroon
Randy and Lori,
Hornet.
yes, they own the Maroon
This is
Hornet.
the website. So this link will be there so everybody can check it out. Also, I'm told, and you can verify this for sure, that if somebody wants to purchase something, I think you have to have a minimum of $10 purchase. You use the code The Geek Authority, all one word, right? Correct? It's
yes, all one word.
10% off of your purchase.
That's right.
Ta-da! How's that? How cool is that? Wow. Okay, so we covered a lot. Did we do the do you like Star Trek over Star Wars thing?
We did. We talked briefly about it. You threatened me with it.
No. What do you think?
I like both. I think they're similar but different. I'm not going to argue that Star Trek came first. Pretty much when it comes to Star Trek, I really like. Of course, I like the original series. I like Next Generation. But because I'm always the guy that likes the album that all the fans hate, I love Enterprise.
I do too. I think I think third and fourth season are the best. So
I mean, that was I think it was the time of my life when I was watching that, and we had it was perfect. What was they just had an animated series, Lower Decks, on CBS, and I was pretty impressed that they tried something like that. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. But
well, listen, I feel the Star Wars universe, except for the Mandalorian, I feel the same way. All the older stuff, I can even handle 1, 2, and 3, but it's the newer stuff of Star Wars and the newer stuff of Star Trek. I just can't get into. It's just not Star Wars to me. A little bit the Last Jedi more so, and Star Trek too. This whole Discovery, Picard was a disappointment for me. Lower Decks was a disappointment.
Wow, it's interesting you said Picard, because I tried Picard.
No,
I really wanted to like it. I really did. It just, like, I think the best episode in the Picard series was the one with Riker, because I felt like they captured a little of that magic that they had.
The finale where he saves him.
No. When they go to the planet and Troy and him have their house, and it's kind of like a safe house for Picard.
Oh,
and
okay.
they're in, I thought I like that. I like that particular episode because I felt like all the fans watching it wanted that type of episode. You know what I mean? Like, they wanted to see a little bit of that charm and wit. And
I just think the story.
Jonathan Frakes. I like Jonathan. I'm into Jonathan Frakes. Like, I like him. Like, I know other people.
I do too.
Said, like,
I've interviewed him. He's a great guy.
Wow,
he's down to earth. If you see him at conventions, he's the wild and crazy one. He loves the fans, which I think is so cool. Not all the people do.
Right.
But as far as Picard goes, it's just the story went south as far as the character. I don't think Picard would be so bitter about, and he retired supposedly, and then he's brought back on. It's like, it didn't seem congruent with Picard of what I'm used to.
Yeah, but that's what they did with Luke Skywalker in the sequels. Like, let's just make him, like, he's going to, here's this passionate person that wants to do right. And then
you mean Force Awakens and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, well, again, I agree with you. The last thing I just said is all the new Star
Yeah.
Wars, minus
Mhm.
The Mandalorian, uh, and all the new Trek. I'm going to say it. I've said it many times. I think the Orville is more Star Trek than Star Trek is currently.
Wow.
Have you seen the Orville?
No, I have not. I'm sorry.
Oh my God!
No.
You want story driven. You want morale play. You want characters that are fun to watch. You want visual effects that are state of the art. It is Star Trek, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
And you got to give it
All
a
right.
shot.
I'll add it to the queue.
you
I got that much time.
and if you do
But
watch it, that might be a little thing you and I can do a show on the Orville because you're
that'd
new
be
to
fun.
it, and I
Yeah.
adore it.
I love stuff like that. So yeah, we'll have to figure that out.
Okay. Well, listen, we have talked this audience. Hopefully, they're still tuned in and listening. So, Chris, let me say this has been exciting and interesting and informative, and I like the fact that we don't agree on everything, and we're still talking to each other.
Yeah, that's right.
And there's no
This can,
hashtag hate everywhere.
that's right. This can happen, people. People can have conversations and disagree. It's okay.
Absolutely. I mean, the majority of everything you like, I like too.
Yeah,
It's just
I mean,
that
sure.
there's certain points that I'm just like I don't know. I'll never love Jar Jar. Sorry, but I do love Darth Maul. I do love Liam Neeson. Immaculate Conception? No, thank you. And for people who don't know what we're talking about, the Anakin character apparently just, how do we say it? Just came
He
into
was
existence.
conceived by midichlorians.
Is
But
that what you want to go with? Because that's not what they said.
well, I have a feeling, reading
Nobody
what's
said
coming.
that. It hasn't been published. George didn't say that. It wasn't in the script. It was just, hey, she woke up and I'm with baby. So,
Right.
and I
Well,
remember laughing out loud when I saw it. So,
now every single detail is getting its own backstory, and I imagine that sooner or later we're going to get a Disney published backstory on all that too.
you heard about the change over at Lucasfilm, right?
Oh, I hope. No, tell me.
Okay, well, if you haven't heard, there is a lady that is about to be escorted out on October 31st.
Oh, is that official?
And the keys to the car have officially been offered to Jon Favreau for Lucasfilm. So we may see Gina Carano back. We may see 3 and 4 seasons of Mandalorian, the Ahsoka Tano series, a rewriting of the Obi-Wan, because I think they're shooting right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it can't really officially happen, until the 31st because that's when her contract
It
ends.
sounds like too wild a rumor to be true. Is that? I mean, do we have our best men on this?
Yeah.
Like,
Let's just say,
okay.
if they would have been interested in keeping Kathleen, they would have announced that her contract's going to be renewed.
Listen,
Disney hasn't said a word about Kathleen. That's number one clue.
The fans have been asking for this for a long time, like either Filoni or Favreau, and I feel.
Just so you know, it's Favreau that's controlling the production business side of Star Wars right now.
Okay.
Filoni is the creative whiz kid who's doing the Bad Batch and responsible for with Favreau with the Mandalorian, and they had already planned out the Gina Carano, I forget what it's called, series, the Ahsoka Tano series,
Rangers. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Rangers, and then Boba Fett.
Mm-hmm.
That was all
Fett.
planned out,
Mm-hmm.
but someone fired Gina Carano, and the last thing we heard about that is apparently John and David are going to do their best to get her back on board. And if she doesn't, I understand. She was fired on the internet. So
yeah.
I don't know why she didn't do a lawsuit, but I think I understand why. But anyway, by October 31st, we should know who's in charge of Lucasfilm officially.
I think this is good news.
It is.
I don't mean to be mean-spirited to Kathleen Kennedy. She was involved in a lot of films I grew up with and
Right.
are very special to me.
But she
but
should
I think
never be in charge.
Well,
No, listen, the other films you're
talking
talking about, she had Frank Marshall and Steven Spielberg.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying she's solely responsible for the films that are near and dear to my heart, and I'm not saying that the films that are near and dear to my heart are perfect either. But that being said, her name's in the opening credits, and so I think.
Well, I'm talking about her history. She's made some great films with other people.
Yeah,
but these new ones,
and
the ones where the women, are in charge. The wokeness is what they're calling it. I don't know if you follow the internet. Are you on the?
Oh, what's that? Tell me about it.
Like the wokeness, the Gina Carano. Pedro
Well, hey,
Pascal said
listen. Like
something really, really racist, and he wasn't fired. She said something about something else, and they fired her. It's like, really? But the
there's
reason, if you know the politics of it, there's a reason Gina was specifically targeted.
Oh, I understand, and I follow her on Twitter, and I've seen it. I
Uh,
she put a really wonderful cryptic post up on Twitter the other day, like basically saying now's not the time to beg or something like that. Like, or I find it interesting that you're begging, and I was like, oh my goodness. So I loved her character in The Mandalorian. I thought it was refreshing, and actually it was
Perfect.
achieving a lot of what they aspire to achieve with female characters in the
Absolutely.
Star Wars series.
Independent, strong, doesn't take any
Wouldn't
crap
mess with
from
her.
anybody.
No,
Yeah, it's
nope.
like training others to like, hey, listen, if you do it
Yeah.
this way, you might get more results. It's like
And it's about the character on screen. That's what it's about, you know? So,
character and story. Yeah,
yeah,
you can
but
have the
like,
great
so,
character, but if they're sitting there twiddling their thumbs, it doesn't really do anything. And vice versa. You
right.
could have this great story, but if you have a character that's just like, I don't believe you, um,
Yeah.
it's got to be that chemistry.
But, but if I had to agree with every musician I listen to, every painter, that work I admire in a museum, every filmmaker that makes a film, if I had to agree with their ideology, if I had to agree with their beliefs, if I had to agree with everything, I wouldn't be able to like anything. I wouldn't be able to take in entertainment. I think there's a point where you need to separate what this person is in the real world versus what their job is when they're acting or when they're making something. And I think that's important. You do
Well,
not have to agree with Gina Carano and what
right.
she believes in.
And I
You
think
just when she's playing a character, you either buy her performance or you don't.
right. And I think what Kathleen Kennedy did is just blatant, revenge. Her mission was to stop John and Dave, and it,
Mm.
it derailed for 2 years all their plans for this. And get this, the season 2 finale of The Mandalorian literally broke Disney Plus. Literally, people could not watch it because all they got was the spinning circle because
Yeah.
so many people were rewatching it.
It's a fantastic show, regardless of whether you're a Star Wars fan or not. I know that's a pretty bold claim, but when you have people in the office that don't know anything about Star Wars or like, I'm watching The Mandalorian, you're like, interesting.
Yeah. Story,
Yeah.
characters, story, characters,
Yeah.
number
Yeah.
one and number two.
So,
But anyway, we can go on like this forever, can't we?
yeah. Yes.
Absolutely. So listen, Chris, Mitch, thank you so much for doing the show. If
Oh,
you haven't already, I hope the viewers have loved it as much as we did. Right? Wink, wink.
I sure
Uh,
hope so. Yeah.
There's a button somewhere here. Please hit that button to subscribe if you haven't already. Also, the little bell that'll let you know exactly when I drop videos. You'll get an email specifically for whatever dropped in the information. Just to let you know, besides this show right here, the Geek Authority Show, I have the TGA's Mysterious Chamber of Collectibles, and that's basically where I open up stuff that I've been collecting for years because I'm old. I also have another show called Unboxing the Geek Authority, where I get items and things from various vendors or people that have little shops, things that are new. I open them for the first time. You see it, I see it. It's kind of exciting too because I'm a little kid. I open it up, start playing with it. I also have TG's reviews, opinions, and commentary. That's basically where I talk about different kinds of shows that I like or have to deal with. Some of the things like Doctor Who. I talk about what makes it work, what makes it not work. Another show I have called Talk About, TGA's Talk About. That's where I get together with family and friends and we talk about current shows like Cobra Kai, which was a really cool series on Netflix, as well as older shows like Space 1999 with Martin Landau and Barbara Bain, one of my favorite classics from the 70s. I also have a show called TGA's Making Entertainment. That's where I go behind the scenes of people doing projects, movies, films, Zoom projects, and talk about the making of it, generally before it's released, so you can learn how that's done, what it takes to put on a project like that. And then lastly, right now, I have a show called Playing Games with the Geek Authority, where we literally take one game, play it from beginning to end, talk about the rules, the problems, the things you might run into, suggestions if you want to play the game even better. That's it for me. Chris, again, thank you so much. I appreciate your time. You were
Thank you.
so. Go
Thank you
ahead.
so much for having me on the show. I'm flattered and I'm glad that we got to,
And we're going to do
talk
this
some geek
again.
stuff.
Okay.
I'll try to be more ready. I felt like I was letting you down half the time here. I'm just trying to keep
No.
up with you.
No.
I was wondering, as you're going through all your shows and stuff, like when do you sleep? Like,
Um,
like how do you have time to do all that?
well,
It's incredible.
this guy kind of reminds me once in a while that I need to sleep. Now, note he's a Star Wars character, but
Oh, I see it.
he's Starfleet ready. Little thing. Anyway, thank you again so much. Thanks for watching, and let's say goodbye. Thanks. See you next time. Bye bye.
Take care.